Well, this weekend, the Reason Rally took over the National Mall here in Washington, D.C. Billed as the largest gathering of the secular movement in world history, the National Mall Park Service estimated that over 30,000 people were in attendance. And despite the rain, the participants waited for hours to see speakers like Richard Dawkins, Adam Savage. So we have to ask what the largest gathering in history of atheists, humanists, secularists, freethinkers, skeptics, whatever it is that you'd like to call them, what does it really mean? Are we seeing a more open-minded society, or judging by the rhetoric that comes from GOP candidates? The legislation that's being brought up in states across the country, is the tension between the religious and the not only growing? Joining me to discuss this is Krauss, Foundation Professor of the School of Earth and Space Exploration and Director of the Origins Project at Arizona State University. He's also author of A Universe from Nothing, Why There Is Something Rather Than Nothing. Lawrence, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And, you spoke at this rally over the weekend. Tell me what you think the reason for it was. Why did we see the largest gathering in history?
Well, I do think people have been concerned by the level at which religious rhetoric has begun to play a role in this campaign. But more importantly, that I think they want to make it clear, and maybe these kind of things will begin to make it clear, that there actually are other voting blocs in the country besides the right-wing conservative Christian voting bloc, that there actually are a significant number of people, at least 14 or 15% of the public, that claim to have no religious affiliation. That's a lot of people. And those people tend not to vote as a bloc on certain issues like abortion or things like that. But they are interested, in fact, in public policy being based on reason instead of myth or superstition. And that level of rhetoric in the campaign, I think, is one of the reasons why you've seen so many people come out to this event, besides the fact that it was fun. And it was. There were comedians and musicians and a lot of interesting talk. And the atmosphere was wonderful. Before I talked on stage, I walked around and was meeting with people, and there was a lot of enthusiasm about the notion. And why would you need? It's kind of amazing that you even need a rally to suggest that public policy should be based on reason and empirical evidence. You shouldn't need that in the best of all possible worlds, but what we made clear is we don't live in the best of all possible worlds right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have a lot of people out there that constantly want to go back to, the certain morals that, excuse me, that the founding, they believe, is grounded in. And so I'm just curious.
It's even worse than that. They make claims that are just so obviously opposite to the evidence of reality. I mean, ridiculous claims like the fact that prenatal care or birth control somehow encourage abortion, or the claim that public policy should be based on the presumption that the United States is battling Satan. I mean, that's kind of really worrisome when you think that might be governing the policy of a potential candidate for president.
Well, no, okay, I'm with you there that I think it's pretty worrisome when it comes to the policies that certain candidates might put into place. But so what do you think that the breakdown is there? Should we grill, I was looking at an interview with Richard Dawkins the other day too, and he thought that we should really grill our presidential candidates about their certain personal beliefs and about certain things that you might see, in the Bible, and see if you believe in that, or should it stay private and then you have different beliefs that are supposed to come out into the public realm?
Well, Richard and I have talked about that, and you may have been watching a conversation he and I have had when we've talked about that in public as well as private. And I think the point is, if the religious beliefs were clearly private and didn't impact on behavior and in fact campaigns, then maybe that would be the case. But it's not the case. We live in a world where, in fact, the candidates have to trumpet their religious beliefs, no matter how silly. And in that case, it seems to me it's open territory, and absolutely, you have to ask yourself the question about the character and rationalism and skepticism of someone who is willing to believe that Rick Santorum is off scale, so I don't think we have to discuss him. He's clearly a nut. But you might take Mitt Romney, who seems more reasonable, but he's already, the Mormon Church is based on this ridiculous notion that this known con man discovered golden tablets under a tree and somehow translated them into 17th century English in the 19th century. And in fact, as Romney has said, that Jesus will come back and reign half the time in Jerusalem and half the time in Missouri. I mean, these are I do think, since the candidates trumpet their religion, that becomes fair game. I mean, if they trumpeted their sex lives, I suppose that would be fair game too. They don't, and maybe that's a good reason to leave it alone. But
well, so in that sense, do you think the atheists have to push for more? Because you mentioned that there is this voting bloc. They don't necessarily always vote in unison, but Democratic politicians also all have to go out and prove that they are religious people. We've seen the exact same thing happen with President Obama, and I think there's, only one member of Congress that is openly atheist. And so, is the atheist voting bloc going to have to become more vocal? Are they supposed to become like the conservative right and start scaring their politicians?
I hope not scaring, but the point is that it's obvious, as Richard has said, statistically it's clearly impossible that only one member of Congress doesn't have a religious beliefs. But in the current climate, you can't talk about that. And people are, in fact, afraid. And there's good reason. A recent study by psychologists in Canada and the United States looked at voters' perceptions for students and adults. And in fact, the group that is most distrusted was atheists. They were on par with rapists. And that's kind of amazing, because all the atheists are doing are questioning religion. I mean, we should be revering questioning in our society and not reviling it. And so I think there are tons of people who are afraid to talk about this. And if there are open rallies like this where people can see lots of people come out, and not only just one member of Congress, but former members of Congress and some Hollywood stars, and then maybe people will become less afraid about saying, it's all right to question silly beliefs. And in fact, more importantly, it's all right to demand that silly beliefs don't impact on public policy.
All right, but so how do you keep it from going from questioning beliefs that you think are silly to ridicule and showing contempt? Because that is one of the things that Richard also said when he was speaking this weekend.
Well, I think to some extent, ridicule is one of the ways to bring an important question out in public. I mean, comedians do it all the time, satirists do it all the time, and I think the amazing thing about ridiculing religion is it seems so shocking. How dare we ridicule religion? But in fact, why does religion have a special place? Why is it no more subject to ridicule than science or politics? And I think what Richard is suggesting, and maybe it's necessary for some people to do this, is to consciousness raise. Is to suggest that, nothing is above ridicule at some level. And ridicule is a very effective form of satire at some level. And it just points out that beliefs are beliefs, but they're nothing, if you'll forgive the pun, nothing is sacred when it comes to ideas.
All right, well, it seems like probably there were, 30,000 other people that agreed with you on that one this week. And Lawrence, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks again. You take care.